the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with Chief Conversationalist Bill Kenney, featuring Matt Ardill, with special guest Thomas Sena. And now, curator of the hall, your host, JD.
Thank you so much, Kirk Lane. It is an absolute thrill to be here with you yet again at the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and I'm really excited for today's episode. We have got Thomas Sena joining us, Conversation Meister Emeritus. He will be joining Bill Kenney in the cage. I'll get more into that as we go. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominations have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to help decide who will be enshrined for perpetuity inside the hall. And that's how we play the game. It's just that simple. So, Larry David, let's get right into this.
Today I'm walking down the hallway and I have to tell you, I'm feeling pretty good. Oh, Matt.
Hey, JD. How you doing?
I'm all right. I think I probably gave it away there, but today we're talking about Larry David.
We are indeed.
Hit me, dealer.
All right. 5'11", born July 2nd, 1947 in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, New York. Larry David is as if New York manifested an icon of comedy. The archetype of the grumpy comedian. He attended Sheepshead Bay High School before going on to attend University of Maryland, College Park for history and business administration, where he was a member of Tau Epsilon Phi, which makes me really curious. I kind of wish they'd have done a curb about his time in a fraternity, because that is just something I cannot imagine. Larry is credited with 7 producer credits, 14 writing credits, 23 acting credits, which seems rather meager compared to some nominees. But when you look at the shows that he has created, including titans like Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, not only has that material been definitive, but it's also allowed him to be rather selective in what he's choosing to do, because that Seinfeld money is going to keep him forever. So he can do what he wants to do. Now, embracing the autobiographical, it's arguable that he was the talent behind Seinfeld. A success as you look at post-Seinfeld, what Jerry and himself have done, it really does give the vibe that maybe he was the main talent in making that show work. In addition to Curb and Seinfeld, he's written Thanksgiving specials, a TV film, Clear History, the movie Sour Grapes. It's Gary Shandling's show, Fridays, and the original Max Talking Headroom show. His weirdest credit was appearing as himself on Hannah Montana, as well as on Entourage, which is pretty much the only thing that could make me watch either of those shows. Now he also appeared in the Three Stooges reboot as Sister Mary Mangala, which is pure David. His first film, Sour Grapes, received 0 stars from Roger Ebert. A score Ebert himself describes as reserving for films he considers evil, which David paid forward in the 2000 episode of Curb, where a food critic uses a thumbs up, thumbs down review, gets his thumb broken in a dodgeball game, which Ebert thoroughly enjoyed, as he was a very big fan. While on the cast and writing for Fridays, he met Michael Richards, who he later cast as Kramer. He actually began performing stand-up in his 30s, And while he considers himself a former failed stand-up, he says that he developed an allergy to caviar, which was, quote, the perfect metaphor for my life. Um, Once while working as a stand-up, he walked onto the stage, looked at the crowd, realized this was not going to work, and just said, "This is not going to work," and walked off and didn't perform at all. He lists Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, Abbott and Costello, Jackie Mason, Alan King, Don Rickles, and Mad magazines as his influences, which actually all makes perfect sense. He drew from real life experiences, including his time on SNL, as inspiration for George's life in Seinfeld. Weirdly, despite being from Brooklyn, he is a Yankees fan, and even worse, he is fans with the owner of the Red Sox, John Henry, whom he lives near in Martha's Vineyard. You Yeah. Yeah. Now he is quoted as saying, "I guess I still feel that I'm a comedian. If I had to pick one thing that I feel like I could do, it would be that. It doesn't mean that I'd like it, but I feel that's what I am." And that's Larry David.
That is Larry David. And this is Bill Kenney and Thomas frickin' Sena in the conversation room together. Only one man will leave. Stay tuned and find out who will be the Lady Macbeth with blood on their hands.
Yes, thank you, JD and Matt. Welcome into the conversation. We have one of my favorite hosts to talk about today, who had one of the most intriguing arcs in the history of SNL. And I'm excited to be joined by one of my other favorite hosts, who, the last time he was on with me, I referred to him as Kate McKinnon coming back so quickly. This time, I think I have to refer to him as my Buck Henry because, twice in one season. Thomas Sena, welcome back to the show.
Man, what an honor. Twice in one season. I'm a two-timer. I'm actually a five-timer guest on the SNL Hall of Fame, I think now.
As soon as I get my five-timers jacket for being a guest, you will get yours, Thomas.
Everything's on backlog.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. When you said one of your favorite hosts, I was like, oh, getting ready. And then you said Larry David, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Larry
See?
David. Then you made it good. So I appreciate that, Bill. Thanks for having me back in the guest chair. I love this. It kind of suits me.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Thanks for coming back so soon. I know this was one that you jumped at when the list was revealed, and I thought if I was sitting on that side, that would be the first one from this list that I would have gravitated towards. He's just such an amazing person, Larry David. So, first of all, what's going over at Pop Culture 5, and what else do you have going on, Thomas?
Yeah, Pop Culture 5, we're running like on I think 75 to 80 episodes now that we've hit. So just a lot of exciting things happening over at Pop Culture 5. We are, let's see, what do we do? The Notorious B.I.G. was a recent episode. Notorious B.I.G. songs, who both Jeremy, my co-host Jeremy Dove, and I believe is probably, in our opinions, the greatest of all time rapper. So that was a fun one. We decided to tackle David Lynch movies since he passed in January. So we took on the challenge of doing 5 essential David Lynch movies, and it went a lot better than I expected. I thought the episode might be like 30 minutes. We'd get to a movie and it'd be like, well, that was weird. Yeah, it was. Okay, what's your pick? But we had actually a really good conversation about David Lynch. So Jeremy Dove and I, Pop Culture 5, we're just like, I think we're really, really hitting our stride and just having a lot of great times. And coming up, SNL related, Bill, in honor of Mother's Day, we're doing a Women of SNL episode.
Oh, I
So,
love it.
when female cast members, we're going to honor the women that made SNL what it is today. So, in honor of season 50 coming to a close and Mother's Day. So, look for that in May. Special to SNL Hall of Fame listeners, I'm giving you guys a little sneak preview of what's to come there.
Ooh, a little tidbit. Yeah, you guys do such a great job over there, and
Thanks, man.
I really enjoy the eclecticness of what you guys decide to talk about. And waiting for my invite, Thomas. So no pressure, but
Yeah, we'll have to get your list. Whatever I think we've just talked about, we'll work it in. I'm such a nerd that I think I have because Jeremy and I switch off being hosts of the show, and then that means a lot of times
yeah.
we'll be the one to propose the topic for our episode. And I think I have my next like 15 ideas just kind of sketched out on my spreadsheet there. So I need to fit you in, man,
I mean,
because
no, I
you're
was
one of my favorite
joking.
people to talk to, though.
Well,
You really
thank you.
are.
Maybe we could do best SNL Hall of Fame hosts, and that could be just kind of a blood feud.
Three men enter, one
Yeah.
man leaves. Yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to what you guys do next. But for today, let's talk about the incredible Larry David. He is. It's. I love the strangeness of the history of SNL with the show that's lasted for 50 years, and this is one of the strangest. Thomas, that we have someone who got his start in stand up in the 70s. He was working with people like Jerry Seinfeld, obviously, who he got to know, and comes on as a writer in season 10, the Steinbrenner year, and only gets one sketch on elevator stool, which this is one of two instances we'll talk about that he made into Seinfeld episodes. Yeah, he had a very nondescript year at SNL, gets fired, and that's it. Never hear from him again, except what happens next, Thomas? What do we get from Larry?
He, uh, yeah, he along with, a comedian named Jerry Seinfeld, created a show called Seinfeld
Ooh,
after Jerry Seinfeld, and it became maybe, like, the most successful sitcom of all time. It's really, I think that Cheers, it's on, like, the Mount Rushmore of successful sitcoms, but he rose to, I guess, prominence in the entertainment, realm, by being co-creator of Seinfeld, but his arc, you're right, Bill, is just so fascinating. Even before SNL, he did stand up and all. Then I love hearing him talk about his stand up days and how he would like go up there and bomb, and then he would be antagonistic with the audience, yell at them, and for yo, this is funny, or he would just his style. His style was must have been just so great to watch in the 70s. But that's the thing about Larry, and maybe why he didn't work as a writer, especially around that time on SNL, because he has such a distinct voice, and
yeah.
he just needed to find like the right avenue to convey that.
Absolutely. I think, the whole time machine, where would you go? And there's obviously, you know, back to the beginning of America and, very famous moment. For me, one of the things that I would love is to be on the 70s stand-up scene, being able to go back and watch Letterman, Seinfeld, Larry David at the beginning of their time becoming who they ended up becoming over 30, 40, 50 years. And Larry David is certainly a huge part of that. And yeah, so, we do have him in 11 background appearances. Maybe that's his biggest legacy from his year on the show.
Right.
He's famously in the Lishman's Deli when Eddie comes back to host. He's also in the Run, Throw, and Catch Like a Girl, which they actually just showed in a clip package at the 50th. Get to see Larry's fro in the background there. And yeah, he famously quits after one of the shows. He's hugely frustrated and then decided to show up on Monday as if nothing had happened, which was the second episode of Seinfeld that became.
Right.
This is an early one where he did it, and it was the revenge episode of Seinfeld in season 2.
Yeah, and that tactic worked too.
Yeah.
He kept his job, and I think Ebersol, if you've ever read Dick Ebersol's autobiography, he mentions that, and he's like, "Well, I knew Larry was just mad and blowing off steam, and I didn't take it too seriously. So when he showed back up on Monday, I was just like, fine. Like, then nobody, he didn't even acknowledge it. It was just sort of like Larry's back, and but just to hear Larry tell it, he's just like he even told Ebersol the show sucks and you suck and this and I'm out of here. And then just Sunday morning the next day, like when Larry started getting a cooler head, he's like, "Oh damn, I need this job."
Yeah.
Well, what if I just showed up Monday? What are they gonna say? And turns out he that kind of game of chicken Larry actually won. Good
Yes.
for him.
Yeah, and at least he didn't roofie Dick Ebersol, right, as opposed to the Seinfeld episode.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I guess his two most that's probably his most famous moment at SNL. In typical Larry David fashion, it was a moment where he quits and then comes back. Uh, he does have some sketch experience though before he gets to SNL.
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
ask you,
Bill.
Thomas, what was your
Yeah.
experience with that?
Well, I don't have a ton. Of course, from 1980 to 82, he was on Fridays, ABC's Fridays. And that's where he met Michael Richards, who was a cast member on Fridays. And I need to do more deep diving because I've seen clips online here and there, and it seems like from what I've seen, it actually seems something worth exploring. Honestly,
It really is, and it's actually out, it's on DVD, and it's on a couple of free streaming services, so definitely go check that out. It was, strange, and I think it got a lot of flack for trying to be SNL, obviously, the king at that point, but, it comes on right as season 6 of SNL is starting, and so SNL is on the downslide.
right.
It's kinda crazy that it didn't last longer than it did.
I'm surprised by that because if there was ever a time to take SNL's sketch comedy mantle, it
Yeah.
was around 1980 when Fridays premiered. And if you watch Larry's work on the show, it was definitely like Larry was given the room to kind of like share his neurotic kind of voice. There's a lot of things that I can tell that he wrote, sketches that he was in. He had one where it was like he had on Julius Irving and somebody else, and the whole sketch revolved around like, what's it like to have a Jewish name but not be Jewish? So that's like Larry
Yeah.
type of humor, right? And he
Yep.
would go on like Friday's equivalent of Weekend Update and do commentary and stuff.
Thanks, Mel. Thank you. Let me say something right now. I've known Mo Gaddafi for what, ever since I was a kid. And I just can't believe that my old pal Mo would hatch a plan to assassinate Reagan. Not the Mo I know.
Well, Larry, what do you intend to do about this situation?
Well, I intend to give my old buddy boy Mo a call, Mel.
All right. Well, it seems that Larry David is going to be calling up his old pal Muammar el-Gaddafi.
By the way, I agree. Like from what I've seen, Fridays is kind of like an SNL. I wouldn't say ripoff, but they did kind of follow the SNL template to a certain degree.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but there's room for more than one, and it was on a different night, so I don't think there was any issue.
What night was it on?
I don't remember. We'd have to look that up.
I'll have to look that up. Get
Yeah,
the
yeah.
research team on that.
We need Stat Boy. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but let's talk really quickly. I kind of referenced it. What was the one sketch, Thomas, that he did get on to Saturday Night Live the year he was there? Do you remember?
Yeah, so did it revolve around an elevator man being
Mhm.
able to having a chair
Yes.
or something? Yeah, so then because I remember the episode that it turned into on Seinfeld, what he felt sorry for the security guard at the department store, so well, I
Right.
got him a chair, and then the end of the episode, the security guard fell asleep in the chair while it was like being robbed. The store was
Yes.
being robbed. But I don't quite remember the beats of the elevator sketch necessarily.
It's if you've seen the Seinfeld episode, it's basically the same exact thing except in a
Okay.
different place, and it's notable because it's Ed Begley Jr. You've got Christopher Guest, Billy Crystal, Gary Kroger, and Harry Shearer, and yeah, they have this idea that the elevator man should be able to sit in a stool when there's not customers, when there's not people in the elevator, and it just kind of devolves from there. It doesn't get much of a laugh in the room, so I don't know. And this is much later in the season, I believe. So yeah, this was his one moment, but he did turn it into gold on Seinfeld with
Yeah.
the episode The Maestro.
Yeah. Do you think that just if it was a different time period, that Larry's unique voice would have been more accepted and he would have gotten more sketches on? Do you think it was just where SNL was and who the writing team was that didn't quite jive with Larry?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem, I do think that because soon hereafter we get, unique voices like Smigel and Jack Handy. So I think because he's on the Steinbrenner year and they're all writing for themselves. So you have Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, and Martin Short, all writing their own material, all bringing their own characters. So there's not a lot of room. I mean, most of the other cast doesn't get airtime. Most of the other writers aren't getting any airtime because these four behemoths, geniuses of comedy, are doing their own thing. So I think definitely if
Yeah.
he's on a year or two later, but then that changes. We're on a darker timeline if there's no Seinfeld.
I agree. I think it's a super dark timeline. No Seinfeld and no Curb Your
Oh,
Enthusiasm.
no.
That's not a pop culture world that I wanna live in, Bill.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the end of SNL for Larry for decades. We don't see him. We don't really hear from him. He obviously, as we've said, goes on to Seinfeld. Curb Your Enthusiasm comes out in 2000 and rivals Seinfeld for
Mhm.
the title of one of the most important comedies in television history. And if that was where it ended, we'd still, have a lot to talk about with Larry David, except 40th anniversary rolls around. You know, we're just past SNL 50, but SNL 40, Jerry Seinfeld comes on, does the Q&A, which kind of a staple of all these anniversary episodes. And Larry gets some lines on SNL, and they have this great repartee where they're talking about, weren't you a writer on the show? Wasn't I a writer on the show?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he had to ask Jerry, is he like, Larry even forgot
Yeah.
that he was ever in that building
Yeah,
working.
yeah, but I think, and then they mentioned Seinfeld, and they kinda got in at the end of, the uniqueness of network television, and, as luck would have it, we have the second time in a decade, we have a politician who matches someone who is a comedic genius. So, in 2008, we get Sarah Palin,
Mhm.
and everybody's like, "Well, she looks like Tina Fey," and Tina Fey comes back to the show. It becomes this really huge thing that she's there. We get Bernie Sanders in 2016, and who does he look like? Who does he sound like, Thomas? Where are they gonna find somebody to play
If only.
Bernie Sanders?
If only. And I wanna hear the conversations because I imagine when he was approached, knowing Larry, he probably said no
Yeah,
right away.
yeah, you
Like,
would think.
"What? No, nobody wants to watch me. What the hell are you talking?" And then it probably took some convincing, but I could see Larry like, "No, that's ridiculous. Why would I play Bernie Sanders?" And he had to be talked into it, probably.
You would think so, you would think so, but he makes his debut, his cameo debut in, 2016, and, yeah, it's or no, 2015, excuse me, and, so he does that twice, and then somebody has the brilliant idea, "Oh, maybe Larry should host,"
That should
and
have been a brilliant idea 10 years prior.
right?
I don't know, like, by 20 he first hosted in 2016, by then, and especially when we see him at the 40th bill, I think a lot of SNL fans were like, "Damn it, why hasn't Larry David hosted?"
Yeah.
I think that was the big kinda sentiment amongst SNL fans is, "Why hasn't Larry David hosted? What is going on?" You
Well,
know?
it takes till season 41, episode 12, but we do finally get our wish. Seinfeld fans, Curb fans, and SNL fans all can unite. We get Larry David as the host in the episode with the musical guest in 1975. Uh, so, where would you like to start with this episode,
Man.
Thomas?
Man, especially since Larry David hosted twice, I actually think this is one of the best episodes of the last decade, and I just wanna kinda I think we should just kinda go through it. honestly.
Let's do it.
Because this
Let's
is a
do it.
classic, such a classic episode. And Bill, I think right away, the monologue, it's such a Larry David monologue. Like you expect a certain kind of vibe and tone from Larry David when he's hosting SNL, or like what you imagine it to be like. We're getting all of it, man, like
Yeah.
in this monologue.
Okay. Stop. You're going to be very disappointed. That's what I do. I disappoint people. Yeah. Anyway, this hosting thing. Come on. So stupid. I'm not a host. I'm a guest. I don't host things. No one's ever even been to my house. If they did go, they'd find it extremely unpleasant. I don't put out snacks or dip. I can't remember the last time I had dip in my house. I have a dipless house.
Right away, that's such a Larry David perspective, and he goes like, he starts talking about how like the differences between like he used to be a poor schmuck and now he's a rich prick and he hangs out with other rich pricks. It's just such a perfect Larry David monologue.
Yes, and this is probably the most use of the word prick ever on SNL. I think he says it like 10 times. Yeah, it is. He starts right out of the gate with, stop, you're going to be very disappointed. So he's setting the tone immediately. He's got the repartee, and he talks about dating. Are you sure she's not dating you for, your money? And of course she is. Why else would she be dating me in the first place?
Exactly. He says stuff like very relatable, like one of the great pleasures of my life is leaving anywhere I am. I'm like,
Yes.
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 Yes, I feel you, Larry David. So it's just such like all the like the little neurotic things that made Seinfeld and especially Curb Your Enthusiasm so amazing and relatable. Larry's delivering it right
Yeah.
away. He's giving the people what they want.
He is, and even with his final line of the monologue, he turns what we always know is gonna be said, right? "It's gonna be a great show, we've got the musical gu" No, I can't tell you it's gonna be a great show.
Is again, I'm sure like they told him like, okay, and then after the monologue, we usually say this, and he's probably during rehearsals like, but what if it's not a great show?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why am I promising this? And they're like, all right, Larry, just say that we can't promise anything, and we'll just go with that. Like,
I'm sure it's been done before. The only one that really comes to mind is Norm when he came back to host, and he's like, "Some sketches are gonna suck."
yeah.
But,
One of the great monologues too. He's like, they
yeah.
fired me,
Yes,
and
yes.
now I'm hosting. Yeah. But yeah, this was right up along those lines. Like, so this is like a perfect start to an episode.
Yeah, and, I think the only question that anybody would have about Larry coming to host is, what we've seen him, he was not really on camera on Seinfeld other than all those little Easter eggs that you would get. And then on Curb, he's playing a heightened version of himself. Is he gonna be able to play characters? Well, Thomas, right out of commercial, we get the answer to that with,
Oh
FBI
boy.
Simulator.
Let's get back to it. I'm my own asshole.
Oh no, I left my backpack on the school bus.
There you go. Good control, O'Healy.
I'm Kevin Roberts, and I got a very important question. Can a bitch get a donut? Now let's dance. See you on the flip side.
Yo, did that guy just say, can a bitch get a donut?
Some say the beta version of like David S. Pumpkins.
I have said that, yes.
Yes, I have said that too. As soon as I saw David, I love David S. Pumpkins, but my mind was like, oh, this reminds me of Kevin Roberts.
Yeah,
That's SNL superfan cred right there, Bill, when you were reminded of Kevin Roberts
yeah.
after watching David S. Pumpkins. But this was so great. Kevin Roberts, like, is this like strange character. This like, basically the premise is that they're at a FBI training school. Cecily is leading it, and it's Keenan and Pete, and they like different types of people pop up, and they have to decide whether or not they're a threat and shoot them. So it's like a person says, "Give me all your money," and then if that's an obvious threat, a little old lady, that's obviously not a threat. And then a strange person like Kevin Roberts, and Keenan's kind of confused, and then he ends up shooting, and then that was the wrong choice, and he's like, "I just got confused. I don't know what to make of Kevin Roberts. Like, is he a threat? I don't know." So just like wonderful character building right away.
Yes, yeah, and he's dressed in like these 80s clothes. He starts a trend that, is crazy to watch all these sketches back to back. The wigs that they find for Larry David in these two episodes are out of this world. And this kind of begins that, and he starts with the line, "I'm the coolest bitch in town."
He's the coolest bitch in town, and I- another awesome line that's become like an SNL fan lore is can a bitch get a donut?
And the bitch get a donut,
So
yeah.
he's the coolest bitch in town, and he's a bitch that wants a donut. Just so quotable, so just like even from Keenan's perspective, like just how confused he is. He's like, I'm pretty confident that that type of man does not exist in society. Just the way Larry with his like movements, and he really played it up. If you ever anybody listening, if they ever have a chance to watch like the outtakes, or like, I don't know if it was just the rehearsal, I don't even know if it was dress rehearsal, but Larry, when they were doing this, and it wasn't live, he couldn't keep it together. So I'm surprised he actually like didn't break
Yeah.
during the live sketch, because they've showed him like rehearse, and he just like could not keep it together, unsurprisingly.
Right. Yeah. And as you said, this is really the beta version of David Pumpkins. David Pumpkins would come about 8 months after this. But watching this, you definitely get that aha moment of, wow, okay, this is kind of where that seedling was placed. And yeah, so you still don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but he is the founder of this particular FBI simulator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that invented it. And shout out to Bobby too, who
Oh,
comes out as Kevin Roberts' friend who has a donut
as a
for
donut.
Kevin for Kevin Roberts. Just such a weird, and I love, me, I'm like a big Will Forte fan. But I just love when SNL gets super weird. And I love that they did it right out the gate, like the
Yeah.
first sketch.
Yeah.
So this has become like a kind of a modern day SNL fan kind of cult classic, I think, amongst us.
I would think so. Yeah. And we keep the momentum going. We get one of the best, I'm going to say this twice in this show, Thomas, one of the best pre tapes in the last 15 years. Burn Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. I
That,
think, Bill, I wrote down that this is one of the best things that SNL has done in the past 10 to 15 years,
yeah.
like pre-tape or otherwise. Like the beats of this are absolutely perfect.
2%. What's
this I hear about you not shaking your constituents' hand? You can't do that.
No, you don't understand, Jeff. She gave me a cough and shake.
Sure, it wasn't a cough and a wipe and a shake?
No, there was no wipe, definitely no wipe. She didn't have the decency to give me a wipe.
You are such an asshole, Bernie. You know what? This is why nobody likes you, because you're an asshole.
Oh, I'm a...
Yeah,
Let me tell you
you
something.
are. You are.
People love me, okay? I have
Here we
more
go.
individual donations than any candidate in history, and I don't take from millionaires and billionaires.
You can hear in the audience as soon as the Curb music starts to play, they're very, very excited. And, it's just a roar from the crowd, which you don't always get. And it kind of lays out, uh, Bernie as Larry David. But we also get all the characters from Curb Your Enthusiasm. And where does it go from there, Thomas?
Yeah, so Bernie starts off wouldn't shake Leslie's hand. Leslie was playing a character, a Bernie fan, a Bernie supporter at one of the rallies, and Bernie wouldn't shake Leslie's hand after she copped into it. And then they have this whole Curb like exchange about like, oh, you can't, you copped into it. I can't shake your hand. And then Keenan, as the husband, gets mad, so the entire family's mad, and he ends up talking to who's the campaign manager. It's supposed to be Jeff. I think the Jeff like character.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure it wasn't a cough, wipe, and then shake? And like, no, it was a
No.
cough and shake. And so they start coining these like Seinfeldian and Curb like terms. Cecily as Susie is just phenomenal.
So good.
So perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect. So he basically ends up alienating all these people. He alienates a character played by A.D. Bryant, who gets in a car wreck and she hurt her shoulder, and he's like, "Is there anything I can do to help?" She's like, "Yeah, you could pop my shoulder back in." And he's like, "Pop it back in? What are you, nuts?" Like, I'm not a popper. And I agree with him. Like, if somebody asked me to pop their shoulder, I'm like, how the hell do I know how to do
Oh,
that? What are you saying? I'll drive you to somebody who can do that. But yeah, it was just like, when I say perfect beats, it was just like they captured Kirby enthusiasm so perfectly. Every impression was spot on. Jay Farrow's Leon is
so
up
good.
there for me as best Jay Farrow impressions that I've seen on SNL.
Yeah. Former SNL writer JB Smoove. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and then it ends with the beat of, it looks like he's going to win, but of course he lost by 5 votes, and they cut to Leslie and her family and 80 standing there staring into the camera, and cue the music that has ended every Curb episode ever. Yeah, just from start to finish, one of the most amazing things they've ever put together.
Yeah, yeah, for real. It's one of the great pre-tapes of all time,
Yeah.
I think, and one of the best just things that they've done in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So right away we get like a cult classic in the FBI simulator and Kevin Roberts. We get like one of like Chef's Kiss kind of like all-timer
Yeah.
kind of sketch, and that's just how we start. That's just the first two sketches. So this episode's shaping up just to be like a truly like all-time level kind of episode.
Absolutely. So you want to continue chronologically? We'll go with Steamship, which it comes up next. They're on an old timey boat, and I don't know if it's supposed to be Titanic. They don't really say, but it's just kind of the boat is going down, and they're getting women and children on the boats, and here's Larry saying, why should it be? Shouldn't it be whoever's closer?"
Yeah.
Larry's playing a perfect version of Larry David, and he calls someone a midget, and there's kind of a cringe moment. He's like, "What? It's olden times. You can
Yeah,
say that.
I love how he references it as olden times.
Olden times." Yeah,
That it's okay because we're in olden times, and
yes,
I can say that. Just that the whole thing of him questioning the women and children's first directive, like, I'm surprised, and I've watched Curb Your Enthusiasm all the way through, like, 3 times, and I don't really remember that as a plot in Curb, but it sounds like something that they could have pulled right from Curb.
Oh, they absolutely could have. They could have done a modern version of this on a plane or on something. Absolutely,
Yeah.
they could have. And then what happens after that?
We get a really, really fun walk-on.
I am so sick of the 1% getting this preferential treatment. Enough is enough. We need to unite and work together if we're all going to get through this.
Sounds like socialism to me.
Democratic socialism.
What's the difference?
Huge difference. Huge? Huge.
And I remember being a little surprised, and I wasn't, like, on Twitter at the time, so they may have spoiled it on Twitter, I don't know. I was just a guy who didn't have much online presence, just watching SNL. But Bernie Sanders walks on, after Larry says that he comes from a rich family and he should be given priority. Bernie Sanders walks on, and Bernie comes on to talk about how he's sick of the 1% getting preferential treatment, and they have like this. He and Larry have this fun exchange. His name's like Bernie Sanders Witzke,
Yes, yeah,
and he's like, "Well, we'll shorten it, whatever."
right.
Uh, so that was a really surprising to me. Walk on is really fun to see Bernie and Larry David interact.
Yeah, and this really kind of puts it above the Tina and Palin of it for me, because even though they appear in the same episode, they only cross paths, Tina and Sarah Palin, where you actually have these two people, the person who's impersonating them and the actual person And it's almost jarring, if you shook them around, would you be able to tell who was who?
Exactly, exactly. And I don't think so with the Tina and Sarah Palin thing. I think when Sarah Palin appeared on as Tina was doing her impression, I think that took a lot of the wind out of the sails of that impression. I think that's kind of where
Yeah,
it lost me.
yeah,
But I like this because Larry wasn't doing a Bernie impression when
right,
Bernie walked on.
yeah,
So I think that made it, it didn't take away any life from his Bernie impression. I don't think. And I think, even though honestly, like I find Bernie a much better person than Sarah Palin. But even if Bernie
yeah,
had walked on when Larry was doing a Bernie impression, it would have like kind of ruined some of that for me.
yes,
But that's, but I like that Bernie walked on when Larry was just playing some like in his terms, rich prick
right.
of the time period.
Yeah,
But
this is a big one. Yeah, it's a huge with a Y one.
yes, huge. Are you saying
Huge,
it's huge? Huge.
huge.
Yeah, Bernie making, and I like that Bernie's able to make fun of himself because for how he pronounces that and everything. So
Yes,
like, but I like that Bernie Sanders didn't take himself too seriously with that appearance.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we're still off and running,
man.
oh, it's already a great episode. And then,
Jeez.
uh, my goodness, like, this in SNL nerd geekdom circles, this is the Star Wars trilogy for us. As far as commercial pre-tapes, we get Totino's. We get the second Totino's, starring the incredible Vanessa Bayer, and Larry is one of her hungry guys.
Yeah, one of her hungry guys, and this takes a great twist. Like the Larry and his buddies are watching the Super Bowl, or so we think, and they're yelling at the TV, "Go go go go! Touchdown!" Fumble, and
Oh,
then Vanessa's kind of like almost getting out of character a little bit. Like there sure seems to be a lot happening in the game, and then she notices that nothing's actually on the TV, and they're possessed just watching it and chanting, and it turns into an X Files
yeah.
kind of thing.
Steven, what's going on? What have you guys been shouting at this whole time?
No, 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 no. Fumble.
Okay, haha. Very funny, Steven. Now cut it out.
Go, 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 go. Touchdown.
Why are you doing this? Brittany, get in the car.
No, 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 no. Fumble.
What's happening to my hungry guys?
Totino's just like an all-time classic SNL trilogy, Bill. Like,
Yeah, yeah, this is, and Vanessa has one of my favorite lines, What is happening to my hungry guys?" The way
she
she says
screams
that.
it,
Yeah,
yells it with
drops the plate
passion.
of Totino's.
Yes, so I think this fit in so well. Like the first one was the activity pack,
Mm,
which I thought was great. The second one, like, there's not going to be a Kristen Stewart episode. We already, both Sammy and I talked about it in the Vanessa Bayer episode. It was like the third one was just so classic, but this one fit right in
yeah,
with this amazing trilogy, man. So you have like, Kevin Roberts, a very memorable character, an all-time classic pre-tape Bern Your Enthusiasm, an amazing walk-on, a really fun sketch, and then we have like the second of a classic trilogy. Like, what is this episode?
I mean, this, as you said at the onset, this may be one of the best episodes we've gotten. And we're not even done. But like this, I think John Schneider and I this summer are going to do the greatest episodes of all time on the Saturday Night Network. I think this will be included. I think there's something to be said for this because we still don't have, never mind a dud. We don't really have a medium sketch here. This
No.
is the banger after banger. Like this is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, this is awesome. But though, segue, I think we're hitting now the first the first sketch where I wouldn't give an A to.
Okay.
So I think the songwriting class sketch is fine.
Yeah.
Though I think it's the weakest of the episode. I think by far.
Yeah, it's and it almost speaks more to Pete Davidson's ability to carry a sketch like this. I can imagine this being elevated by somebody like Mikey Day or Taryn, who was on the show at the time. I don't feel like this is quite the role for Pete, so that might take something away from it. But
Agreed.
Larry is still very good in this.
Yeah, Larry's awesome. He plays Russ, who's in a songwriting class with a bunch of people, and Pete plays the teacher of the songwriting class, which totally agree with your point. If it was somebody who was less timid, I think Pete played it too timid and wimpy.
Yeah.
Which I think that there needs to be some of that with that character, but I agree. Like Mikey, I think even Beck would have knocked it out of the park around that time.
Yeah.
So Larry plays Russ, and they're trying to find they're doing exercise where they're trying to find the rhyme. So Pete's like hitting his bongos and starts with a lyric, and then they're trying to he's instructing them to finish the lyric with the rhyme, and Larry starts concocting this whole song about Froghattan, which is a city, basically Manhattan, but with frogs.
Buzz, buzz, up in the trees. Oh no, it's
The rise of the toads.
Russ. I said no frogs, bud.
I know, the toads invaded Froghattan and killed the frogs.
The word was bees. Good try, Russ. All right, brand new song about a fun day at the beach. All right.
The toads closed all the beaches because they're at war.
Yeah.
So he's doing these nonsensical rhymes, and it turns in, and then everybody, and a classic SNL sketch format where there's one weird person to start with, and then all of a sudden other people start jumping on board with the weird person. So that happens, but it's fun, and I think you're right. I think it's mostly kind of no offense to Pete, but I think it is kind of Pete's fault.
Yeah. No, I mean,
in this.
he was put into the role, and that's just the way it went. But I think Larry's part in it really he sells, because it is supposed to be this whole almost like first grade level, see the frog jump over the log, and he turns it into Frog House, and then, as you said, it becomes this whole story. Everybody gets involved, even when it turns to the bees, when buzz buzz look up in the trees. It's a swarm of frogs and tiny helicopters. So
Yeah.
the theme just kind of continues. Not as much escalation as we prefer, but I think for Larry's part, there's no fault on him.
Yeah, no, this isn't a dud as far as Larry's concerned, and that's why we're here is
Yeah.
talking about Larry, and this is another one where he just fits in so well with SNL and with the show. And that's why I think like his sensibilities, he was just in such like the exact wrong time period as a writer, and that's why I'm so happy to be able to see him come back as a host and share his sensibilities in the SNL format.
Yes. Yeah. So then, Thomas, we end the night with one of the biggest 10-to-1s that we got in this era. Last Call with our friends Sheila Sauvage. And I don't know that we've ever really gotten to speak about this sketch. What are your overall thoughts about Last Call? Were you a fan of this?
Yeah, I've always been a sucker for Last Call, and especially as like a sketch to kind of close the night. I think it's a really obviously, Last Call. It's kind of fitting that it's closing the night, but I've always been a sucker for these. I think Kate just sinks herself into the Sheila Sauvage character so well. I think they've always picked the right hosts who are just willing to like play with Kate and do these demented things and say these demented things. And Keenan's his reaction, but there's a whole SNL fan meme like Keenan reacts, and this is like perfect Keenan reacts sketch.
Yes.
They play it up so much. I love these, Bill.
I do too. And even though you can say they're almost paint by numbers, it is always kind of the same. I don't care. So if you do it well, it doesn't matter. The ones that we pick apart that are paint by numbers are the ones that aren't good, or they were only good one time. This with somebody, a powerhouse like Kate, and to see her with somebody like Larry David. This is really. Could you see like Kate being on Seinfeld if she was like 10 years
Yes.
older? Absolutely. Like she would have been one of these people that came onto the show. And so yeah, we get Larry as Ace Chuggins. And again, I'm upset. I'm in the weeds with the wigs, and this is a great wig that we get from Larry here.
It's so good. It reminds me of a character that Dan Aykroyd would play in the 70s. Just such like a slimeball kind
Yeah.
of character with the whole jacket and the way, like, it really reminded me of like a Danny character from the 70s in like the best way. And Larry played that so well. He and Kate too, just such wonderful chemistry.
So good.
I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
When I first saw you, I thought I'd have to put a paper bag over her head.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, yeah, just put her in a shadow.
Yeah. And you had me at paper bag on my head.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, we are connecting big time. Quick, what's your favorite color?
Stripes. What's your favorite smell?
No fart.
Me too. No fart.
Really?
Something is happening.
Oh,
here.
it is. It is happening.
And one of my favorite beats that we got from most of these last calls is when Kate is like, "No way," and like he says his name is Ace, and she, "No way, I'm wearing one of your bandages."
Like the most graphic, kind of gross thing possible.
Yes.
Like that's kind of the point. One of the points of these sketches is to like how can we just say and do the most revolting things, and Keenan can be like a true stand-in for the audience, right? Like
Yes, yeah.
and then they succeed right here, and it kind of culminates with like Kate licking Larry's head while Keenan's putting police tape around them. Like,
Right.
this is a great button to the sketch, but
Yeah.
Larry's just that type. I mean, all episode he showed that he was that type of host that would just want to play with the cast, just, lend his voice and really play within the SNL format, which I think is key to being a great host, is not like overtaking the show, but like playing within the format and really getting the most out of yourself on SNL.
Yeah.
And Larry's doing that so well, and this is just a prime example to me, like almost a perfect way, especially in this era, to end the episode.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest concern going into Larry hosting is, he's famously kind of a curmudgeon. And again, you didn't know how he would play in sketches, how he would work well with others. And he kills it. I mean, this is, as we said, one of the best episodes of SNL in this era for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this was his only episode that he'd hosted, we'd be disappointed as fans. Like, oh, why didn't Larry come back? But it would still be memorable. Like, to me, he would still be a memorable host, and possibly like the greatest one-time host ever if this was his only contribution as a host to the show.
But it's not. Yeah.
See how I teed you up there?
I did. Thank you for that segue. We do get one more wonderful episode from Larry David as host, season 43, episode 4, November 4th, 2017, with musical guest Miley Cyrus. This was a banger of an episode, one of my favorite musical guests of all time, and of course, Larry David. Curb had made its triumphant return just the month before. He had taken almost 7 years off of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I'd like to think, Thomas, that we started to get more Curb Your Enthusiasm because he had wandered back into the comedy world with SNL. What do you think?
Yeah, it got those creative juices flowing. It got his he remembered that he actually does love to perform, right? And I think I would like to think that performing on SNL, especially season 41, was like, oh man, I think I love doing this. I like playing Bernie Sanders. I love being on camera. I remember I loved Curb Your Enthusiasm. So let's see if we could pick more meat off that bone. And they certainly did. Like, I celebrate Curb's entire catalog. Like, every season
Absolutely.
of Curb is fantastic. And then to your point, I think we do get another great episode here in 2017.
Yeah, and again, we get a monologue that only Larry David could deliver right out of the gate, right? He goes back into talking about dating and how he didn't date a lot, and covering sexual harassment. It's one of those time capsule. Obviously, sexual harassment has existed many centuries, but we're right at the beginning of the Me Too movement.
Mhm.
And it's really kind of an important moment that we're, you know, having him come on and be able to tell some jokes in this really dark time.
Yeah, and he doesn't fumble it either. I think, he puts his own Larry David spin on it, but he really doesn't like fumble the moment either. He doesn't say anything that goes too far. Now, I think he did maybe get some criticism here and there because this was the one where he talks about like being in the concentration camp, and it's like I would still flirt with women. I would still notice women if I was in that setting, and so he kind of like jumps off. So I remember maybe a little pushback after that,
A
but
little, but
I don't
yeah,
know. I
overall,
think yeah, I think he did a good job, with it, and then he goes into the Quasimodo, like, he's like he found it interesting that Quasimodo still had, super high standards for
right.
dating. And I swear there was, like, a conversation that, like, Jerry and George had in Seinfeld that was kind of up this alley.
Pretty much every episode, I think.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, probably George having 2 highest or both of them, but,
Yeah.
like, and I love how he plays the conversation, like, it's just the friend Quasimodo's friends trying to set him up, like, I talked to this woman, she's cool with the hump.
Yeah.
She doesn't care.
But does she have big jugs? And I mean
Yeah.
that
It's Quasi, I like 'em big. Does she have big So, yeah, this is like, when I and to speaking to Larry's Hall of Fame candidacy, like, I wanna host that has their own special unique voice. Like, what do they as themselves contribute to the show? Like, a lot of hosts can have good episodes and be part of good episodes. I always go back to like Linda Hamilton hosted an amazing episode, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was because of Linda Hamilton. I think
right,
she just kind of happened to be the host that night.
right.
But with the all-time great host, it's like I want their voice. I want what makes them them, and I want that to shine through. And we're 2 for 2 on his monologues,
Yeah,
I think.
and maybe the first time in SNL Hall of Fame history that Linda Hamilton has been mentioned, so good on
Yeah, I
you,
had to.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is right, we're right out of the gate again with a great monologue, and we go into Price is Right Celebrity Edition. We get a lot of people in this sketch, but again, Larry's playing Bernie. He's teamed up with Pete Davidson, and yeah, which is really a fun way to go. What how do you want to set this up for us?
Yeah, so they're doing the prices right. I think what they're bidding on is some sort of like common household appliance. One of the Hemsworth, I think it was Alex Moffat playing Chris Hemsworth, kind of is joined by his brother ultimately, and they bet like they say they don't really use currency where they're from in Australia. They barter. So their bid was like something crazy.
It's a washer, Thomas, because
It is
we
okay.
get the
Yeah,
great
yeah.
speech from Larry towards the end of this. Yeah,
Yeah, so Larry is essentially as Bernie. They bid like 89 cents or something, and they actually win the bid because everything. So, but I think it was a good avenue for Larry's impersonation because you could see like the angle that he and the show were taking with Bernie Sanders. It's
yeah,
always like the fight against the 1%, and I'm fighting for the common man, and
right.
so he displays that perfectly, I think, in this format. I think this is a really well written sketch.
He does, and part of Bernie's charm was like, yeah, he's a politician and he's got some money, but he doesn't really want it. And like he goes on about who needs a washer when I need to wash the one suit that I own, I wait till it rains and then jog
Yes.
behind a bus till the exhaust drives me off.
For some reason, Bill, when I was watching his part in this, I couldn't stop focusing on the background actors.
Oh,
'Cause they were
really?
yeah, it was weird, like, they were just kind of looking at each other and react. Because I usually just see them kinda sit there, but the background actors were, like, reacting to everything Bernie was saying and stuff, and I don't know, just a weird random little tidbit from this sketch, but I was just fixated on these background actors. That's how somebody would react to Bernie Sanders on Price is Right, saying all that stuff.
I would think so, yeah, and I think this is a pretty good sketch to start with.
Mhm.
We get a lot of good impressions, including his, of course. And then we go to Ad Council Awards dinner. So we have, he's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work on stuff like McDonald's commercials and Got Milk. But then as we start to peel the onion, we get to find out that some of his stuff has not aged very well.
You guys really did your research. Yeah, I was really proud of those. We helped a lot of kids.
Let's take a look now at a few of those groundbreaking PSAs.
Hey, Doug, you want a cigarette? Oh, come on, don't be a baby. It's cool. Try it. Smoking? No way. That's gay.
If someone pressures you to smoke, just say, no way. That's gay.
One of the tags was like, bullying is gay or something like that. Like, so this was the 80s.
Just,
keep in mind,
just
so it
say
was
no way, that's gay.
that no way, that's gay. Yeah, they use the R word as
Right.
one of the tags. So it's, yeah, and he's just sitting there, and then, like, Larry as that character, like, knows that it didn't age well and it's wrong, but he's just kind of like, oh, and then they say it, that they bring up another one, like, oh, you did one about with a biracial couple, and he's like, yes, biracial couple, let's check that out. And of course it ends up being just a terrible one. I think both homophobic and just like a couple of the other bad ones that you can think of. But I think this was a decent concept that maybe became a little heavy-handed as it went on. But I did appreciate the concept, and it did. If you go back, we're still talking about this stuff today, as we should. But 2017 was like, the height of like raising awareness for different things like that. So talking about how something doesn't age well, like, fit perfectly within the time, I think.
Yeah, and even at SNL 50, we got one of the few clip packages we got was an in memoriam to things that hadn't aged well on SNL, and they cover all the different things that they've done over the years. And I always find these fascinating because it is harder to explain to especially younger people how it's just the way society has shifted. We weren't sitting there going like, "Oh, okay, this isn't right," or it was kind of a step in the direction
Yep.
of being better people, better society. So to kind of make a comic conceit of this, I think was a really good way to go. And as you said, he mentions it in the monologue. And then we get the Bill Cosby reference, which we're right at the height
Oh,
of Bill Cosby. I got to work
yep.
with an icon like Bill Cosby. So yeah, I think shining a light on stuff like this, kind of a mea culpa of, yeah, we weren't perfect in the 80s and the
Yeah.
90s. Like let's own up to it.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It's great to make fun of ourselves for that too. And anybody, I'm 43 and you're what, 42, Bill?
I'm
You're a little
41
younger
and a
than me?
half. Yeah.
Okay. So we're both, yeah, no, we both grew up in a time where maybe if we were, I know when I was a teenager, I probably said a lot of regrettable things. And if there was like a camera in front of my face, or if I had social media, people would be able to dig up stuff that I said, and it wouldn't be great. But that's the kind of the point, is that we grow as a society, and it's kind of incrementally sometimes. And then we're able to kind of look back and assess and maybe make fun of ourselves
Yeah.
for that. So I think that's, this type of sketch does a good job of highlighting that.
Yeah, I actually wish they would do more of this to kind of reference things like this. But Larry's a perfect person to do something like this.
Yeah.
Next we get a pre-tape, the baby step, and is there a more Larry David moment in the show than the baby step pre-tape?
Thank you. That's one of the things I put down, is this might be the most Larry David thing, maybe for sure this episode, but maybe that he's done on SNL.
Yo, what up? It's your boy Soft Spot. It's your man Heavy Dice and me Onesie.
And yo girl, Baby Snack.
Wow, wow. We got that new dance for y'all.
We babies, so you know when we get down, you gotta do the baby step.
Well, let's do it, Larry David.
And I am not in this.
Hey, what's your name on Insta? We taking baby steps.
Keenan and Miley and maybe Pete did this video and Chris Red, and they were doing this video. It was called The Baby Step. So they were dressed up as babies, like big babies with bonnets and stuff. And then they're doing this like song, and it's ridiculous right away. And they cut to Larry, and he's like, "Nope, I'm not in this. Nope." Like, and then they cut back to the video. And at first, like when you watch it, you're like, "Is this like a real?" No, but the whole like they knew that the baby step concept was dumb, but that was the whole point, was just to like show Larry, just talk about like how he doesn't even want to be associated with this. Bill, and then by the end, he walks onto the set and he kind of like chastises or like shames, like, "Miley, really? You're doing this?
Yeah.
What's up?" Like, yeah.
Keenan, how long do you have to be here before you stop appearing in things like this? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, this is great, and, yeah, I'm not into this, stop cutting to me, like, this is you could imagine, uh, that this would be something that Larry would have said, as they're reading the 40 sketches, at the read-through.
Oh,
Like
yeah. No, I think even, for good pre-tapes, like, I'm really like, you remember those, pre-tapes where they would introduce their rap name, and that was basically what the whole thing
Yeah.
was them just introducing themselves. It was Beck Bennett as, like, this detective, Simple Simon, and all of
Right.
that stuff. I think, and I liked that, but I think if they even proposed, like, a good song and or rap pre-tape, Larry would have said, "No, I don't wanna be in this."
Yeah,
So I can
definitely.
imagine this came from, like, a real somewhat real place.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is great, and, so then next we go to, Fresh Takes, which, is a high school news show. We got Mikey, Alex, Kate, and, Larry as the teacher, another great wig. I know, I'm
I love
obsessed with
it.
this, but,
No,
you
no, I noticed you it's hard not to.
They listen, the wig department at SNL is otherworldly anyway, but I think when you've got this, beautiful bald man and Larry David, like, they really were like, "Oh, we're gonna take the brakes off this and just kinda go crazy." But yeah, he's kinda trying to be hip, they're talking about nonsense that's happening at the school and, who beefed in first period and things like that, and then but Larry takes it to another level and is getting involved in the high school politics of it all and starts talking about the rumors about who's dating who. And, he's heard that Daniel hates condoms. So,
And then even the kids like Dustin, who played by Mikey,
yeah,
Dustin Purcell, the host
yeah,
of the show, they get kinda weirded out like, "What?
yeah.
Why would you say that? Why would you know that?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
the concept of the cool teacher is fun until it's not, and I think that's really, an interesting way to go here, where
yeah.
when the kids are kind of taken aback by, "Oh, he's way too into what's happening at this school."
All right, welcome back. It's time to hear some campus gossip from Mr. Burton.
Ready for this? Christy Harmeyer and Daniel Purdom.
Okay, what do you mean? Because Daniel is with Jessica Perez.
Oh, you're so out of the loop, it's cute. They broke up after all that homecoming drama, and last Friday, I heard Daniel Purdom tell Chad Brandell that he thought Christy was hot. Then on Monday, Christy suddenly starts dressing extra sexy. Coincidence? No way. That's all for Daniel.
Yeah, you could be the cool teacher, but you can't be so in the know and
Yeah.
so quote unquote cool that it just like flips and becomes weird and you start knowing personal things and gossip. And yeah, Larry plays this gossipy teacher so well. And I think it's something that I've seen him do in Curb too. I think, I don't know if you remember when he was texting with that producer's daughter, and
Yes.
that produced a really famous reaction moment from Jerry when
Yeah.
they matter of factly used like the like a certain word, and Jerry was like, "What are you guys talking about right now?" He felt crazy, but the way Larry was interacting with the daughter, almost like he got wrapped up in like being like a gossipy kind of kid. Like, I can kinda see that tone, here. He's so good at finding like, Larry, obviously, he's a comedic genius, so he really, with something like this, will hone in on what makes this so funny and really hammer that home. So you can give him any piece of material, and, like, this sketch might not have been as funny with another host playing this, but Larry
Absolutely.
knows why this is funny, so he's able to highlight it.
Yeah, I think, that's a great point, and there's very few hosts that could do that. I could see a Walken doing something like
Sure.
this, which is high praise. I think, But yeah, you couldn't have Daniel Kaluuya coming in and doing something like this.
No.
This has to be somebody like Larry David to be able to pull off
Yeah.
the conceit of this.
Yeah.
And then we get new wife. So set this up for us, Thomas.
Yeah, I think this sketch is fun. It's like a fun vibe. So Larry plays a guy again. The wigs, the wig is amazing in
So
this
crazy.
sketch. Yeah. So Larry plays this guy who's at a party with his friends, and he has as this title says, a new wife played by Cecily, and she's this like aspiring pop star, and she's really in tune with the gay community, which is rubbed off on Larry. So he starts using all these terms, and his friends are like, kind of basically giving him the responses like, "Who are you? Like, well, how do you know this stuff?" And he's explaining the ins and outs, like almost like the politics of the gay community in some instances. And he's just, it's just like, to me, it's a fun sketch, and Larry's having fun with it too, because he cracks
Yes.
himself up.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, we're still young men, Thomas, let's say it, but could you imagine like 10, 15 years from now, one of your friends starts dating somebody who's 30 years younger than them and you're like, what are you doing, bro? Like, this is not great. And
Yeah.
that's the whole kind of conceit to this. Like, he was this buttoned up guy, met this girl who's, as you said, she's the kitty ambassador to the Twink Republic of Twonk, and she's either 18 or 55.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he starts using for the verbiage like,
Oh,
twink and
yeah.
stuff like that, and they're just, like, trying to follow along, and it's it's like, "What is she doing now?" And it's like, "Oh, she's simulating sex with her gay dancers," and like, just a matter of fact, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
She's timeless AF, Thomas.
Timeless AF. Yeah. I love when there's a part, and I don't know if it was like Kate ad lib or if it was part of the sketch, but when Larry in character gets so worked up that he kind of catches himself like overacting almost.
Why does she have 5 tickets for the train then?
Because her squad has 4 queens, plus her makes 5. You know what? You know what? Get out. Just get the hell out. I want you off the property now. Get out. You're fired. Get out.
Is everything okay? You got so mad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Again, we see the chemistry with Kate and
Yeah.
Larry, and Kate is famous for trying to make people break in sketches, and this is the first time. Larry has kept it together with all these wacky characters he's already played here, all the crazy things he's been asked to do. He hasn't broken. This is the first time we get to see him start to crack a little bit, and Kate just hones in on it. Like, it's really something to see. Uh, I love the way this kind of wraps up when he starts to lose it.
Yeah, he could barely keep it together. And our buddy John Schneider always points out, and I agree with him, is this is an example. It's funny because what makes breaking funny is not the breaking, but like trying not to break,
Right.
like trying to keep it together, but you really can't. So I think that happened here. I think
Yes.
Larry was trying to like say his lines, but he just kind of kept like stumbling and laughing, but he was really wanting to like keep it together. He just couldn't. And Kate, you're right. Kate started like lasering in on him. It's like, "Oh, I'm getting you. I'm gonna get you."
I love it. I love it. And so, but then we wrap up the night with, this is what I referenced earlier, another pre-tape for the ages, and maybe the best Kyle Beck joint that we get. It's Beers with cousin CJ, and it's set as they were wont to do, in a crazy, it's supposed to be like this 80s sitcom. They've got the really,
Like a Full House, I think.
yeah, like a very
Yeah.
shitty laugh track going on.
Mhm.
They have these complete non sequiturs with with the bumpers, and dinosaurs in Washington D.C. and dogs licking ice cream cones from little girls, and uh but CJ it's one of these very special episodes, Thomas, that we kind of grew
Mhm.
up with, right? Where
Yeah.
the sitcom that was always kind of jokey is covering something serious, but with Beck and Kyle, it's not quite that
Right.
simple.
Yeah, exactly. So Beck and Kyle, their characters want to go for a bike ride, but the obvious question is who's going to take care of watch their goldfish while they're on their bike ride? Making fun of like these dumb, contrived, those Full Housey kind of tropes that they would kind of like the writers would kind of devise. So, cousin CJ could take care of our goldfish.
My cousin CJ.
Josh and Mario, here I am. Let's celebrate. Got any beers? Perfect. 1 for you. 5 from me.
Cousin CJ, can we ask you something?
Why not? I am your cousin CJ after all.
What we were wondering is, will you watch our fish while we ride bikes tomorrow?
I can't believe you'd ask me that. Of course I will.
He eventually throws a couple of chairs at Kyle. Kyle realizes that he might be an addict. Beck and him have this little side thing to discuss that. And
They move like 2 centimeters to have their private conversation.
Yeah. I don't know. He's drinking a lot of beer and he threw some chairs at me.
And then it goes from 1 to like 1,000. And even with the way it was escalating, you don't expect this. Larry's cousin CJ stabs Kyle and he starts bleeding all over the place.
Yeah, so he kills the fish when he's playing his guitar.
Sure. Yeah.
And you think it's going to wrap up as these things do with, I am an addict. But no, yeah, he pulls the knife on him. But he doesn't die because, that wouldn't be funny.
No.
He admits he's addicted and then drinks more.
Yeah, these Beck and Kyle pieces, especially this one, I've always loved, and I think history will look on Beck and Kyle really kindly. I think especially Kyle Mooney was a cast member who wasn't appreciated enough while he was on the show, and certainly I'm a little guilty of that. Maybe Baby Yoda colored my perspective a little too much. Bill, I saw a Baby Yoda sketch. I was one of only 300 people to see one on Weekend Update because it was during the Lizzo episode. I believe it got cut.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that.
So my wife and I were subjected to it along with like 300 other people. Then it didn't make air. So at least we got to see the Baby Yoda. But I digress. But I think I appreciate Kyle Mooney more over the last few years since he's been off the show. And these pieces are just so great.
Yeah, I kind of make a parallel to they're almost like the Kevin Nealon on Weekend Update. So you've got them sandwiched between these all-time classics. So with Kevin, he's between Dennis Miller and Norm Macdonald. So it wasn't looked at as highly as it should have been. And in hindsight, you can go back. And with Beck and Kyle, they come after Lonely Island and they're before PDD. So it's really they're in this zone where it doesn't get as much attention. There's this high standard that's hard to reach with what Lonely Island was able to do over 100 shorts. And I think you're absolutely right. This is something that we'll go back and look at and really be able to appreciate. And this is one of the biggest ones for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Beck and Kyle with what they did with a lot of these pre-tapes, and even when they did like what they were the skaters from Southern California that would host the talk show and stuff, and I really liked that one as well. But they didn't necessarily hold your hand through it. With something like this, it was almost like you either understand that we're making fun of like these sitcoms, these cheesy sitcoms, and the beats of it, or you don't. But we're not really going to hold your hand necessarily through it. You either understand these SoCal stereotypes that we're making fun of, or you don't, which is fine, but we're not holding your hand through it. So I think that's what happened is they had their such unique perspectives that they knew was funny, and either you were on board or you weren't, and they were fine with that. And Larry, though, as cousin CJ, it's another one where I could tell probably when they pitched it to him, he knew why it was funny. So he found how to play it just perfectly.
Yeah, again, it's one of those that you really can't imagine a lot of other hosts being able to pull off as funny as it is. So yeah, that's what we've got for his hosting gigs. Thomas, like I know when we did the host countdown on Saturday Night Network last summer, there weren't a lot of two-time hosts, but Larry
Yeah.
David was one of them. It's hard to really put your stamp on and being an all-time host with only two times, but I think Larry pulls it off.
We're talking about sports terms. His batting average, Bill, is off the charts. He's there wasn't a dud of a sketch. There wasn't a dud of a performance by Larry. These two episodes, there's just different degrees of like you might have your classic like Burn Your Enthusiasm, and you might have something that didn't quite work like songwriting class for one reason or another as well as the other sketches, but it wasn't Larry's fault. But there's different degrees of like quality, and there were no duds. And that was, I think, largely attributed to Larry David.
Yeah, I mean, you have people like Tom Hanks, Baldwin, Steve Martin, who come back time after time or in double digits with hosting. And the thing that you always go back to with people like that is they're able to work in anything, as you said, whether it's a mediocre sketch or an all-timer. And that's kind of why they get the reputation that they do. And Larry, even with only two, really gets to show that he's able to do that as well. So yeah, it's been a while. We haven't really seen him since. He was at the 50th in the audience, but doesn't have any lines. Um, but his redemption arc is really kind of complete from a one season one sketch writer
Yeah,
to triumphantly returning and being able to do what he did.
I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of you, Larry David. One of the great comedic minds I think I've ever seen.
Yes.
I think it would have been a shame if he just kind of tried to do Fridays, tried to do stand up, tried to do SNL, and then we never heard from him again. Like, we wouldn't know that we missed out on it, but like just the pop culture world, like the world at large, is just so much better because Larry David found the right vehicles for his wacky neuroses that he shared with the world.
Yes, and to get him so late in the run with SNL is really better late than never.
Mhm.
Do you think we'll ever see him host again, Thomas?
I do not.
Yeah.
I think he's done. I think, Curb's done. He ended Curb. He seems to be content with just kind of hanging back now. He does interviews here and there. He might make some appearances here and there. Maybe I can see him guesting sometime, do a kind of a pop on. But I think maybe at this point, it seems like in his career that he's content with not doing something like SNL anymore, not doing Curb, not doing he's just fine living as Larry David later in life. So and as much as I would love to see it, I think we've seen him host his last episode of SNL.
Yeah, unless an 80-some-year-old Bernie runs in 2020
Sure.
28, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't discount that
No.
either. And then Lauren or whoever the producer is at the time, Steve Higgins, I don't know, whoever, will call Larry and say, "Hey, you want to come back? Bernie's running again. Let's go. Let's get the team back together."
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, here it is, your moment of truth. Tell the voters, the fans, the folks around the water cooler why Larry David should be in the SNL Hall of Fame.
All right, people, listen up. Listen to me very closely. I think Larry David should be considered because, as I've said before, he's a comedic genius. He was able to apply that genius to his hosting gigs. So, apparently, to his hosting gigs, you can see that genius come through. He brought his unique style and perspective, perfectly integrated it into the show. He didn't sacrifice his voice. SNL didn't sacrifice its voice or its format in serving Larry as a host. They perfectly meshed and complemented one another. Just like how in sports, like, some players take less time to reveal that they're Hall of Fame caliber, you kind of know it when you see it. So I think even if it's after like only a few seasons, if this is like that that's a Hall of Fame caliber player almost immediately. I knew LeBron James was a Hall of Fame caliber player probably when he was in high school. Honestly, Larry David's probably similar in that regard. Larry only hosted twice, but the Hall of Fame talent was just immediately clear. He was a huge part of 4 sketches that might be in consideration as like modern day classics, and he didn't have a stinker of a sketch in the bunch. I defy you to show us a bad Larry performance or a terrible sketch. You can't, because it didn't exist in his hosting gigs. And sometimes you just know if someone is worthy of entry into the Hall of Fame. And with Larry, you just know. I think the proof is right there. So please consider Larry David for the SNL Hall of Fame.
Well played, Thomas Sena. Well played. So there's that. An interesting argument for sure. Sounds like a slam dunk the way those two put it, doesn't it? I'm not so sure it will be, though. 2 hosting occasions. I don't know. We'll leave that to Shari and Joe at the water cooler for them to decide. But I think it's going to be tough. Now, there are unlimited ballots this year, so that could smooth things out a little bit. But I don't know. If that argument didn't seal the deal for you, though, we're going to play a sketch for you now. And this might be just something that slams that last nail. You know what I'm saying? So let's do that right now.
I can't believe how many people are here.
It's a revolution, Jane. Millions of people. If we have a good turnout, we can win Iowa. Hello, thank you so much.
Oh my God, Mr. Bernie Sanders! Oh, I'm your biggest fan. And I'm telling you, I'm feeling the burn.
That's a...
What do you mean? You don't think so? Shake my hand.
You coughed into your hand. Don't shake it after a cough.
No, I didn't. Shake my hand.
Oh, no. You specifically coughed into your hand. I saw it.
No, I didn't.
Come on, Mr. Sanders. Don't be rude. Shake my wife's hand.
Sir, I am not being rude. She's the one who's being rude by offering a German-fested hand.
A German-fested hand? Is that right? I'm a voter is what I am, Bernie.
German-fested hand. German-fested hand. I am running for president. I do not shake disgusting hands.
Oh, no. Disgusting now? You don't shake his hand? Really, Bernie? I don't walk away from it, Bernie Sanders!
Mr. Sanders, can I get you a coffee?
A coffee. Yeah, you know what? I'll have a coffee with whole milk.
Sorry, I think we only have 2%.
2%? No. If I'm going to have milk, I'll have milk. Thank you very much.
Bernie!
2%.
What's this I hear about you not shaking your constituents' hands? You can't do that.
No, you don't understand, Jeff. She gave me a cough and shake.
Sure, was it a cough and a wipe and a shake?
No, there was no wipe. Definitely no wipe. She didn't have the decency to give me a wipe.
You are such an asshole, Bernie. You know what? This is why nobody likes you, because you're an
Oh, I'm a...
Yeah,
Let me tell you
you
something.
are.
People love me, okay? I have more individual donations than any candidate in history, and I don't take from millionaires and billionaires. The average donation is just...
27. Yeah, no, did you say it on your TV?
Okay, what people?
Everybody knows.
Oh, shut up, Susan, okay? It's enough.
Listen, Mom, tell you something. I heard you ain't want to shake a black woman's hand.
What? No, don't say black woman, okay? It had nothing to do with black. She gave me a cough and shake.
Listen, you need the black vote, Bernie. You need to shake as many black women's hands as you can. I don't care if the hand got dookie on it. You shake that hand. You know why? Because you might get dookie on your hand. But you know what else you get? A damn vote.
Okay, that was fascinating, Leon. Just fascinating. I'm going to go get some coffee.
You can't go out there.
What? I'm a person like everybody else. I'm a normal human being.
You're not normal.
Normal
You're
human
not
being.
You're...
Oh, shut up, Susie. How about
You
that?
shut up.
Oh, you, Susie.
Hold on, without dookie on your head.
My God, what happened?
I don't know. Are you Bernie Sanders? I was just on my way to vote for you.
Oh, how, what can I do? How can I help?
Well, I think I dislocated my shoulder, so can you just pop it back in?
Are you nuts?
No, it's easy. Just pop it back in.
No, go to a hospital. I don't pop. I'm not a popper.
Well, come on, the polls close in an hour. If you want my vote, just pop it back in.
I don't want it that bad. I never popped in my life. I'm from Brooklyn. No, we don't pop in Brooklyn. I'm sorry. I have no popping experience.
Bernie!
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Bernie!
Excuse me.
How you doing? So glad you could make it, Bernie. The polls are closed.
Where's your coffee?
Oh, I had an incident.
What the hell are you talking about, incident? Just drink the coffee.
I don't want to drink the coffee. I don't. 2%. What's 2%?
What are you, some weirdo psychopath? What's wrong with 2%?
All right, start the presses. Headlines in. They feel the burn. Huge voter turnout. Huge, massive
turnout. Marty, this is wonderful. You hear this? Huge turnout. You know what that means? That means we win.
That's
huge turnout.
Hey, you Four Eyes, look at the TV, damn. You didn't win. You lost.
Oh, come on. But it's by like 0.2%. Come on.
0.2%? What? How many people is that?
Like 5 people. 5 people.
How could we lose by 5 people after building all of this momentum?
You did it.
Mr. Sanders, are you sure I can't get you that coffee? We still only have 2%.
Take the 2%.
Listen, you could hear the crowd right off the bat as soon as they heard the Curb music. They were on for the ride. They were in for the ride. And Larry doesn't disappoint with his Bernie. Bern Your Enthusiasm. What a great conceit. What a great delivered sketch. Who knows? Maybe this will be the deal breaker for you. This is the one that puts him in for you. I don't know. Next week, we are back here in the Hall of Fame. We are joined by our friend Jeremy Dove, who will be sitting with Bill Kenney in conversation, discussing the illustrious career, maybe, of Dennis Miller. So tune in for that for sure. That will be up on Monday. We're done with the late business this time around. Life has gotten in the way, and I do apologize for that. So there's that. Listen, that's what I've got for you this week. So as you're leaving, on your way out, as you walk past the Weekend Update exhibit, do me a favor and turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNLHOF. This is Kirk Lane saying, this is Kirk Lane saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.